The Braves take on the Kansas City Royals this afternoon, and this is your 10-minute scouting report for today's game. This is your Braves Today Scouting Report, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm Lindsey Crosby. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to break down everything you need to know before first pitch. This afternoon, it's the Braves and the Royals, so let's get into it. Both teams have set their lineups for today. The Atlanta Braves are making just one change here. Shortstop Jorge Mateo checks in place of Mauricio Dubon. So the full lineup here, Ronald Acuna Jr. batting leadoff, as normal. Drake Baldwin batting second. Again, the thing he always does. He is catching a day game after a night game, something the Braves were reluctant to do last year, but they've got Baldwin behind the plate again. Matt Olson batting third. Austin Riley batting fourth. Left fielder Mike Yastrzemski checks in at 5. Second baseman Ozzie Albies at 6. Center fielder Michael Harris at 7. DH Dominic Smith batting 8th. And shortstop Jorge Mateo, like I said earlier, in the game at number 9. This will be his Braves defensive debut. He checked it as a pinch runner last night, but he has not yet played in the field for the Braves. The Royals, by contrast, also made a little bit of a lineup change today as well. The top of this lineup looks pretty standard. Third baseman Maikel Garcia leads off. Shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., first baseman Vinny Pasquantino. Salvador Perez moves to DH after catching the first 2 games of the series. Carter Jensen, the young prospect, will now be behind the plate instead of DH, and so he just swaps with Perez. Lane Thomas is then in left field. He played center field in game 1. Jack Caglione in right in the 7th spot. Second baseman Nick Lofton checks in for his season debut, replacing Jonathan India at second base. And then center fielder Kyle Isbell checks in as, in the number 9 spot. This is the first time we've seen this outfield configuration. Thomas, Lofton, Caglione, left to right. I kind of like it. We'll see what happens here. And then also Carter Jensen. There's no way he's as good at ABS challenges as Salvador Perez, right? Like, that's absolutely a thing. We need him to not be as good. When you look at the pitching matchup for Atlanta, Grant Holmes, the big thing to watch for here is, one, he has not been taking it as easy with fastball velocity in spring as a lot of the other guys were. If you look at their averages last year versus what he did in spring training, his average was 94.5 miles an hour on his four-seamer last season. He sat 93.7 in spring. A lot of the other guys were 2 to 3 mile an hour off. He was less than 1. He ran it up to 96 in spring training. He only exceeded 96.2 12 times all year last year. So was he just working on getting closer to his max velo to test his elbow, or has he added more velocity? We'll find out today. I'm also curious to see, does he actually throw this changeup a little more? He is still, four-seam slider, cutter, curveball for just about everything that he does. He does have a changeup. He added a kick change going into the 25 season. He threw it only 23 times all last year. Does he use it more today? He mentioned in spring that he was working on tweaking the four-seam fastball to make it better and getting more comfortable with that kick change. Does he use it more? But the big conversation here is about Seth Lugo. For those of you who don't know a lot about Seth Lugo, he threw to a 4.15 ERA last year with a 5.20 expected ERA and a 5.09 field independent pitching, 20.5% strikeout rate, 9% walk rate, 4.5% home run rate. And the two things you need to know really about how Seth Lugo works, the first one is he doesn't really do anything well. This is a copy of the TJ Stats card for him from last season. There is a lot of blue in here, right? He gets a lot of swings. That's the thing he's good at doing. 44% of the time, guys are swinging at his stuff. Everything else, he gives up a lot of contact in the zone. His stuff plus isn't that high. He gives up a lot of hard hit balls, a lot of barrels, doesn't get a ton of ground balls, doesn't get a ton of swinging strikes. The way he mitigates this is by throwing 10 different pitches. Four-seam fastball, curveball, sinker, cutter, changeup, slurve, slider, slow curve, sweeper, and a split finger. He throws 10 different pitches. If Michael Wacha was the platonic ideal, the model of a kitchen sink guy, then Seth Lugo is that concept taken to its most absurd conclusion. There is virtually no sort of tendencies you can take advantage of. If you look at his Plinko chart, like there's nothing that gets thrown that often. There's nothing that you can say in any situation except for 3-0, which is a tendency that virtually everybody has to throw fastballs in a 3-0 count. There is no sort of tendency that you can bank on. Atlanta's righties here. He throws a four-seamer 21% of the time to open your at-bat. But then there is 5 other pitches all above 10%. There is 3 of those are above 15. Lefties, it is something where there's 2 pitches that he throws just under 1/3 of the time in four-seamer and curveball, but he also mixes in the sinker, the slurve, the cutter. He'll do everything in just about every situation. 3-2 count. He throws a lot of cutters, 35%. That might be the best tendency you can find is 1/3 of the time, if you're a lefty in a 3-2 count, you're going to get a cutter. But for the most part, you have to understand that he could do anything at any time. And this is really just going to be a test of pitch recognition. And the problem is they mostly failed that last night against Michael Wacha. He has a well-rounded arsenal. It's not as extreme as this, but he also doesn't have those tendencies. And he allowed 3 hits and struck out 7 across 6 innings with no runs. So it's very much going to be and this may be something we heard Michael Harris talk a little bit about this in spring training, where he was focusing on looking for pitches in specific parts of the zone and not necessarily what they were, right? He was looking for a window in the zone, and if any pitch was in that window, he was firing off. Since the four-seamer's only 92 miles an hour, or it was last year, 92 miles an hour, you should be able to catch up to that, and then everything else being in the 80s or even high 70s. The slurve is at 79. The slow curve's at 71, obviously. That's going to have to be the game plan today offensively. The last thing I kind of want to make sure that we cover real quick on this is the Braves bullpen. We have seen now 6 different pitchers throw, and you can see by the color coding on the chart, Dylan Lee is the only reliever who has thrown in each of the last 2 games. He threw 9 pitches on Friday and 18 on Saturday. So the odds are he is unavailable for anything except for an emergency situation today. Robert Suarez, Tyler Kenley, they both threw on Friday. They should be available today. Osvaldo Bido, Joel Payamps, Aaron Bummer, those were all used on Saturday. I would imagine they're not your first go-tos today. So your pen probably looks like some combination of Tyler Kenley, Robert Suarez, Raisel Iglesias. Like he has not yet thrown in the first 2 games of the year, so he's also available. So those are your top 3 relievers available today. The Braves also did announce their rotation for the next series as Bryce Elder on Monday, TBA on Tuesday, and Chris Sale on Wednesday. They said they wanted to run a 6-man rotation. I imagine this is a scenario where if they don't need both or one of Jose Suarez or Didier Fuentes today or tomorrow, they may just push Chris Sale back a day and give one of those guys to start on Tuesday and the other guy to start on Wednesday. But technically, the way the rotation's been announced, you do have one of those guys available for bulk innings as well. I imagine that's the plan. If you lose a starter early and have to throw bulk innings, then you just run a 5-man rotation. If you don't have to use one of them, you can go ahead and do a 6-man rotation for, and do that in the A's series. First pitch today is scheduled for, I believe it's 1:35. This is back on Braves Vision. So you'll get a pre and post game show for Braves Vision. And then reminder, we will have after the game, we'll be back after it with the postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta and today's three things over at bravestoday.com. If you want the deeper analysis, the lineup breakdowns, and everything behind the numbers, make sure you're subscribed to Braves Today.